Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing some of my absolute favorite shifter romances. Alright guys, it is officially spooky season, which means it is time for the shifter and werewolf romances. Now, I am somewhat new to this genre, so I have 5 books that I read last year that I'm absolutely obsessed with. They are like my absolute favorite shifter/werewolf romances, but then I have a couple books that are on my radar of books I want to read in October that either feature shifters, werewolves, or are part of the Omegaverse. Now, also, if you notice my shirt, it says naughty and nice. If you know, you know. This shirt is from my book goddess. I am absolutely obsessed with them, and I'm also a rep for that company. So if you want to check out the shirt, I'm going to leave it linked down in the description below, and you can use my code HF10 to save 10%. This is also the shop that has the Good Girl shirt that I wear all the time. A lot of people ask me about that. Definitely check them out. All of their shirts are like bookish and romance, and they're perfection. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, bubbling down below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the shifter romances. And first up, we have Wolfsong by TJ Klune. This is my favorite shifter romance of all time. It is an shifter romance that is absolutely beautiful and my favorite book ever written by TJ Klune. And I've loved a lot of their books, but this one in particular was just absolutely amazing. So this is following Ox. And at the beginning of our story, we meet Ox as a kid, and he's been told his entire life he's not going to get shit out of life. He's considered slow by his father, and he has a lot of trouble making friends. He's just a really quiet kid. So he ends up, after his father abandons his family, working at this garage that is run by a witch named Gordo. Now, Gordo really becomes like the father figure in Ox's life, and he does have people in his world that love him, but still, he's very, very lonely. So one day, when I think he's like 16 or 17, he's walking home from the garage he works at, and he runs into this little kid named Joe. Now, Joe immediately runs up to Ox and is like, "You smell like sunshine and rainbows," or like something like that. I think candy canes and rainbows. And just won't stop talking, and actually ends up bringing Ox back home to meet Joe's family. Now, when the family all see Joe talking to Ox, they are in shock. So then Ox learns that Joe hadn't spoken for 2 years prior to seeing Ox on the street, and that then Joe is actually a werewolf, and his entire family are werewolves, and Joe is actually the next in line to become the alpha of the werewolves. So Ox kind of has a found family in Joe's family. They really like take care of Ox, knowing that he is the reason that Joe started talking again, and Ox and Joe kind of like grow up together. More so Joe, because Ox is like 17, I think Joe's like 10. But anyway, they grow up together. There's a romance that like slowly starts to happen, but then something terrible happens that forces Joe to have to leave Ox. And then years go by, and then Joe comes back, and the story goes from there, and it is so good and so sad. So sad. But this is apparently the first book in a multi-book series. I've only read this book and the second book. I do plan on finishing up the series eventually. I know there is a read-along that is currently going on for this entire series, so definitely check that out if you haven't yet. But oh my gosh, if you read any book on this list, definitely pick up Wolfsong. It is just such a beautiful story. Next up, we have Sanctum, and this is by McBride. So I've seen a lot of conversations being had whether this is YA or adult, and personally, I think that some of it reads kind of YA in a great way, but this is definitely an adult book. And I happened to notice while I was going through this that literally the first page says, "This book contains dark themes, including," it lists what it includes. "They may be mature or triggering for some readers. This book is not intended for readers under the age of 17. So take that as you will. Personally, I think this book in particular, this first book, the beginning, has some very upsetting things that younger readers probably would not enjoy reading about. So I would say this is probably for older readers. But anyway, I love this series. I still have to read the last book. I've been waiting for the audio to become available. I haven't checked in a while. It might actually be at this point. But the story is following Sky. And at the beginning of our story, Sky, I think, is like 16 years old. And her mother is the lowest tier of werewolf. I think it's Omega, but I'm not positive. And all of the people, or all of the women that are in this tier are essentially SA'd like every day by the higher up werewolves, and they have no choice. They just kind of have to take it because that is how this pack runs. Now, Sky is about to turn 18, which means she will then be forced to do what her mother and all of the other Omegas are forced to do, and she really does not want that. But luckily, she still has a little while before her birthday, so she's trying to figure out a plan to escape. Well, then a new pack leader ends up becoming the head of the pack, and he decides there's no more age limit. Sky's going to start doing her duties immediately. So Sky's mother, along with Sky, decide that they are going to flee that night to the Blackwater pack. So they end up doing that. They get to the Blackwater pack, and they end up, or the pack members of that pack end up offering Sky and her mother sanctuary from this like evil pack. So then Sky ends up getting shipped off to like a werewolf university, and when she gets there, she meets Remy, who is the alpha of, or going to be the alpha of the Blackwater pack, and Sky and Remy have a relationship. But while all of this is going on, the original pack that Sky was a member of is still trying to get her and her mother back. So I flew through this series. I was not expecting to love this nearly as much as I ended up loving it. It was just so good. It had a lot of like Twilight vibes, like that really cute like mate type feeling where you know Remy and Sky are like destined to be together, but there's so many things that are kind of driving them apart, and it was just so good. So highly recommend, if you have not picked the series up yet, definitely do so. I absolutely loved it. And next up is Regally Bitten by Lexi C. Foss. This is one of the books in the Blood Alliance series, which is a dark paranormal romance series. And it follows what would happen if lichens and vampires took over the world and humans were used just for breeding and food purposes. So I'm pretty sure all the books can be read as standalones, but this one in particular is one of my favorites. So we are following at first Silas, who's a human that ends up surviving his transformation into a werewolf. So he is put in with this werewolf pack. However, he's like a bottom of the barrel werewolf because he was a human turned into a werewolf instead of born being a werewolf, so everyone kind of hates him. Then you have Eden, or Edon, who is going to be the next alpha of this werewolf pack, and Luna, who is a female alpha who is being forced to marry Edon despite the fact that she is super powerful and doesn't want anyone dictating who she marries. So anyway, all three of them end up having a relationship, and it pretty much pisses off everybody else in the werewolf pack, and the story goes from there, and it is just so good and so spicy, and it is one of my favorite werewolf shifter romances. I just love the romance between these three people. It is so good, and highly recommend. And next up, we have Rabid by Ivy Asher and Raven Kennedy. So first of all, this book is absolutely gorgeous, but this story is following Seneca. So in Seneca's werewolf pack, werewolves end up going through a flux when they come of age, and it is a ceremony where the werewolf spirit ends up entering the human, and then there's like harmony, and then the human is able to shift at will with their werewolf spirit, and it's like a beautiful bonding moment. Anyway, our main character is Seneca, and her pack has recently been taken over by a new alpha who is obsessed with Seneca and wants to become Seneca's mate. Now, Seneca is absolutely repulsed by this guy, and luckily Seneca's mother is a healer and has been keeping this alpha away from her daughter. Now, Seneca's mother ends up passing away tragically and mysteriously, so then Seneca is kind of put right in the line of fire of this new alpha. So during the flux, the alpha ends up biting Seneca, messes up the ritual, and there isn't harmony between Seneca and her werewolf, so Seneca ends up waking up being rabid. Now, on top of this, during the ceremony, Seneca kind of passes out, and the alpha attempts to SA Seneca, so she wakes up with a guy on top of her and is very unhappy, especially because the werewolf is kind of in control, so she goes and attacks pretty much everyone and tries to kill them. So the alpha decides that Seneca is too much of a risk to keep and ends up dumping her on these lands that are owned by a pack of brutal werewolves that are known to kill everyone that comes onto their land. And the story goes from there, and it is so good. Once again, was not expecting to absolutely love this book, but I love a really strong female character, and Seneca is great because first of all, she really just wants vengeance on everyone that has wronged her, but her wolf also wants the same thing and is like super powered, and it is just so good. Also, the romance in this was completely addicting, so highly recommend if you're looking for a really good shifter romance. And next up, we have Wolf Gone Wild, which is the first book in the Stay a Spell series by Juliette. So this is kind of like a rom-com paranormal series. We are following, at the beginning of our story, Mateo, and Mateo is a werewolf who is unable to shift. Now, this is really bad for Mateo because his wolf spirit really wants out, and he can hear his wolf kind of like talking in his head and trying to take control. So Mateo ends up begging Evie, a witch, for help. Now, unfortunately, Evie, along with her coven, which happens to be made up of her sisters, have decided to kind of stay away from werewolves because they're known to be very volatile and like broody. However, Evie just kind of has a soft spot for Mateo, ends up deciding to help him. So we are following the story as they slowly kind of fall in love, but also as Evie tries to help Mateo and find out exactly what caused him to be unable to shift. So unfortunately, I have not read any other books in this series, which is very, very sad because I know this is a very beloved paranormal romance series. I will hopefully get to at least the second and third book in October. I'm hoping. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But yeah, if you love this series, let me know down in the comments below what is your absolute favorite book. Because like I said, I know so many people, like, this is their favorite paranormal romance series ever. And the next two books are books that I have not picked up yet, but will definitely be reading in October, so I will talk about them in my October wrap-up. But first up, we have Obsession, and this is by Kayla Rain and Meg Ann. So this is a shifter romance. It's the first book in a paranormal series. I think it also involves vampires and like some other paranormal creatures. But we are following our main character who ended up turning down her mate 7 years ago. And then she ends up going to a university where she is considered a pariah because she is a werewolf who is unable to shift. And then on top of all of this, the werewolf that she had denied ends up showing up at the university, and it's really awkward, and it just sounds really good, really fun. I know a lot of my friends have read the series and really enjoyed it. And then the other book I plan on reading in October is Baby and the Late Night Howlers. First of all, just this cover is absolutely stunning. I think it is so cool. It kind of has like an old school vibe. But this is a motorcycle club shifter romance, and I love a good motorcycle club romance, so I hope this is as good as I am anticipating. But this is following a girl that ends up, I think, being found by a group of shifters that are looking for their mate, so I think it's also why choose. And I know McKay from Oh Hey It's McKay really enjoyed this. She actually sent me this copy for my birthday, so thank you so much, McKay. But yeah, I cannot wait to get into this. Alright guys, those are some of my favorite shifter romances. Please let me know down in the comments below what is your all-time favorite shifter or werewolf romance. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!